Trena at John's Furniture Repair, and we're in here with this buffet or sideboard. It's in need of a lot of help for refinish and repair. And guess who's here? Look who's in Saskatchewan! Hello! Making my day. I've heard of work naturally, because that's what vacations are about. Anyways, and my dad's over there hiding in the corner as well. Come on out, Dad.
Just checking you on the sharpness of your chisels.
Yes, but thank you, Dad. Anyways, let me get you some close-up views on this guy. It's a beautiful walnut sideboard, and show you how bad it is, because it's pretty bad. All right, off the bat, we've got serious water damage and cracking in between. Obviously, the finish has deteriorated a long time ago. We've got some water stains going on. We've got a burn mark here. We've got veneer issues. We've got some H-brace issues, a little wonky. You can see it's kind of bent. If you look all the way down there, the camera will focus. And it is loose too. So the water has kind of infiltrated everywhere and done its thing to veneer, as it does. Anyways, other than that, this is probably a shellac-based finish, and it has water spotted everywhere and crazed, so we need to get that finish off. It's got some really pretty brass hardware that will shine up. This part here flips down, and it is pretty dirty in there. So we'll get that all cleaned up. It's got a couple of really pretty appliques, some nice turned legs, and just a nice piece in general, made by the Bentwood Chair Company. You can see the label here, the North American Bent Chair Company. So this is Canadian. It was made in Owen Sound, in my old stomping grounds in near Windsor, Ontario. That's not too far from there. And so it's a Canadian-made piece. Unfortunately, still slotted screw era, but that's all right. I think we'll find a couple Robertsons in here too on the hardware. Or maybe not. No, not gonna get lucky. Anyways, let's get this thing taken apart and strip it down, start some repairs, and get it back to
After
good.
Growing up in my dad's restoration shop and learning everything he knows, I'm continuing on with the business in my own shop. And after 25 years, I can truly say I love this job, and I just have to share it with you. Whether it's a priceless 300-year-old hand-carved piece of history or just an ordinary table or dresser, I pour my heart into each and every piece a customer brings me. I'm Trena, and this is John's Furniture Repair.
Hey guys, so I'm just working on stripping everything here. I just thought I'd point out, sometimes I like to use wooden sticks instead of metal scrapers to do some profile work. So, I mean, obviously wooden sticks are really easy to shape into what you need. And also they just don't damage, like if you're going to cross grain and scraping out a groove like this, if it slips, it's not a big deal. It's not gonna gouge into your wood. And then if you have a lot of, you know, just profiles that are kind of cross grain that you wanna get into, the wood almost shapes to the profile as it gets softer. And you can make a million of these things or throw them out and make a new one every time you want. Just makes it a little bit easier when you're trying to just scrape off a little bit. Obviously, if you need something more abrasive or stronger strength for scraping, that's not gonna work. But this is just a shellac finish. I'm just trying to get off the sticky gunk before we go in with our methyl hydrate or our steel wool. So that's just a little tip. You can use paint sticks if you got them, or whatever you got for a scrap piece of wood laying around. Go ahead and just shape it to what you're doing if you don't need to scrape a whole lot. And that's a really easy, fast, free scraper. Okay, so as you can see, the finish is off, but the improvement isn't big. We've got some ink stains, some really dark ink stains, or maybe they are mineral stains, I'm not sure. The cracks here are quite open just from all the water damage. Probably a lot of plants sitting on this thing over the years. We've got lots of water stains, especially here. You can see a really dark mineral stain in the middle and just everywhere. There's also a pretty huge one right here. So, as we often do, we're going to pull out the oxalic acid, and I'm just going to run the sander on this first to open up the grain a little, and then do a good heavy, maybe probably 2 or 3 coats of that, because it's got a lot of work to do here. I'll dump it on here, Dad, okay?
Good.
With this tiny brush.
Yeah, no bigger brush.
Oh, it's okay. It'll get there. The other thing that we noticed that we're not sure if we're going to deal with, we're going to talk to the client, is this center H brace down here has a pretty bent center post. So replacing that's quite tricky because we don't want to take the whole cabinet apart. Not impossible, but definitely a pain in the butt. So we would have to just basically get a new board. Did have this in some tension clamps. It didn't make a difference. I don't know if I wrap it in steam and pull it, maybe that would work. There's things I can do to maybe see if that'll do anything, but we're just gonna ask the client before we spend an extra 10 hours fixing a bent piece of wood, if that's something that matters to him. So I'm just stripping the last leg here. You'll notice as soon as I touch the leg with the stripper, you can see right to that walnut. When the old shellac finishes sit in the sun for a long time and they have a little bit of moisture going on, they go completely white. So it's good to see that wood pop right away. Sometimes you can just rejuvenate these finishes. This one's too far done, but sometimes these old shellac finishes will just come back to life with a little bit of French polish. If it's in generally good condition, you can do that with some of these. So if you're looking at a piece that has this kind of whitish blush all over it, that's what you're looking at. So we're almost done stripping. Everything's going well. Our top is under the second coat of oxalic acid. A little bit of lightening, but I can still see that ring around there. Burn mark's not going anywhere. These have lightened up considerably, but we'll just keep waiting to see if we get any better results. I think there will be a fair bit of sanding happening on this one. The top is in really bad shape, so keep working.
Okay, so working with this top, we've got a couple of walnut veneer splines in those cracks, and then I did putty around the voids because I can't get the veneer into every little bit of it. Some of it's too shallow. So next big issue with this top is this burn mark. So I'm going to show you guys how I deal with that when the customer doesn't want the burn mark left in their piece. Sometimes, you know, the burn marks are a piece of the person who was in the past owning this, part of the family or whatever, but this is not significant to the customer. So we're going to actually cut it right out of the top here. And I try to scrape it off, but it goes quite deep. So what I'm going to do is actually make a pretty significant cut, and I'm going to get rid of all that black wood. You have to make sure not to leave any of it because it'll have a black halo around your repair. So you want to get a little bit past the burn and just, this is terrible, but cut cross grain and right into that big piece of wood here. And we're gonna have to, you know, do a pretty good putty fill and then redraw that grain in. But it's really important to get rid of all the black grain because it sticks out. So I've got my outline. I'm just gonna pop that wood right out of the top. Big giant gouge. You could also touch up and paint this out instead of doing this amount of damage to the top. But this is a way to remove that burnt wood. So now that I've got a pretty cut and clean line here, I'm not going to use regular putty because it does hollow out, and I want something that's going to be really hard because it is a bigger surface. So I'm going to go to the Mohawk putty stick here. You could also cut in a veneer and splice that in, but this is going to be good for this. So I'm just going to cut off a little chunk. And yes, I do have a cold. So sorry for the nasally voice. Okay, and then I'll just mix this up so it's good. Good, and then I'm just gonna get a little bit, because this epoxy putty actually doesn't stick very well to wood. So what I always do with this stuff is get a small amount and really press it into the fibers. And then after that, do your main fill. So I'm gonna overfill that so I can really level it after this is hard. Okay, so we'll let that dry and then see what it looks like when we get it all shaved off. This top is gonna need a sand. All the oxalic acid's washed off, but we still do have a little bit. It did clean up pretty good though. I'm happy with what we got here. There's still faint staining, but I think we're looking really a lot better than we were. And we've got the veneer repairs down here out of the clamps as well. So we did one there, a tiny one right there in that big patch. Looking good. I missed a little bit of this corner, so that makes me mad, but what are you gonna do? So we'll get these filled as well and strip the rest of this side. That's the last bit I have to strip. And then we're on to sanding. Alrighty, so there it is, all sanded to 180. Just hand sanded the base. The top did get quite a bit of sanding because we had a lot of stuff to sand out, and then hand sanded after with 180. So we've got our touch up here, and I did draw in some background color and some graining. You'll see when we put the finish on that this should just blend right into the color of the wood, which is just raw right now. So it'll deepen a lot with the
lacquer hits it. I'll zoom in on that when that happens. I usually do the touch-ups after the first coat of lacquer. So this is kind of backwards from how I do it. But anyways, everything's looking really good. We did have those panels out. We've got them put back in after we sanded them up all clean in there. And I did manage to actually take off this cross member. So I did end up having to use a splitter bar, and then I had to cut those dowels a little shorter to get it out. Now this piece was loose and extremely warped. Let's go take a look at it. I've got it here next to my new piece. You can just see up to it, it's got a serious warp and then a twist at the end. So this piece is a little bit wider this way, a little thicker. So I'm gonna leave that thickness, keep the same width obviously, but we will get a little bit more strength. As you can see, this piece started to split here. If anybody kicks it or it has any kind of motion in any way direction, those dowels are very much close to the end of the surface here. So I'm just gonna use my center finder bit. Jigs are in this little drawer, I believe. Yeah, these guys right here. So you can get these at Lee Valley. Hopefully I have a size that works. Maybe these. So these guys just pop into an existing dowel hole, and then you'll just butt up this piece up against it, and it'll make a center point mark, and that's where you drill. So we'll get those lined up and drill a couple holes in this piece and try to get that to fit back in there. It'll be a little bit difficult because we're gonna have to use that stretcher again and just try to save as much dowel length as we can on the inside of that, but it'll be much improved. You won't have a big wavy piece of wood down there. All right, so looking good here. Got a couple of coats on the top. You can see there's some of my splines that I put in are a lighter color. So we'll need to do some touch-ups here. This is blending in well, but a little dark. But I might, because I had to bleach this top quite a few times, I'm gonna be adding some color to the rest of the top. So I might just mask this and bring it down to a little bit closer to that on the top, because it is a little bit lighter than a lot of the other parts, but not much, just kind of want that tone, and that's a little lighter up there. So it does need to come down to pretty much what that touch-up mark is. So it sticks out right now, but we'll get it to blend in. Again, the drawer is quite light too, and we need to do some toning on these pieces that we took out and stripped. Everything else is looking good. This is our new board that we've got in. It needs a bit of color as well because it's a different board. It's a mahogany piece that we popped in there. So we'll get some toner on those guys. We're gonna be working with burnt umber and raw umber for a little darkening. And then I've got a little bit of a touch-up marker here just for little putty spots, just to give them a dab of color. And yeah, so we'll be working all over the piece with that, because it's kind of all over the place right now. But generally, I want to go for the look that's on the side here and on the rails and the turned leg. So I need to get the rest of it to kind of blend into that color zone. So I'm gonna cut it down with some 320. And I'm thinking I'll probably need to fill some of these cracks. This piece had so much water damage on the top. The laminations have opened up. So we'll need to fill those. Thinking about just doing a filler. That or a wax, because they are actually contaminated on the inside as well. So they're pulling the lacquer out. They're kind of repelling it from the cracks, so the lacquer's not sitting in. Some of the Mohawk wax sticks can really help you get over that with some of these imperfections. So I might take a clear lacquer stick and just do some filling here. So a bit of work before we go on with other coats, but it's looking good. And we definitely got a lot of that staining out. There still is kind of a darker area in the middle, but it kind of just looks like wood figure. And this piece has a lot of that. So I think we're gonna get away with it. All right, so I'll get to sanding and filling. All right, there she is, all put back together. I've got the jewelry all shined up and back on. Looking really nice, beautiful walnut. I think it's walnut. It's quite beautiful though, all the figure. We got our new stick down there, so we don't have a big warped stick at the base looking funny. And we got the base glued up, so it's a little bit more sturdy. And we did refinish the inside like I always do of the drawers and all the drop downs and panels in there we refinished as well. So it's all cleaned up, looking good inside and out. These guys too got a refinish. So just looking like it's put back together and ready to shine again. Just take a look at some of that beautiful figure on the side here. And then we had that big veneer repair on the side of this one here. Right there, you can still sort of see it, but it really does blend in quite nicely with what we've got going on there. And then the other issues were that burn mark. So right here, we've got that guy. It blends in pretty well. A lot better than a black mark, not perfect though. And then we had all of that staining and the gaps here on the top. So those are all looking really good. And the top is back to being a beautiful surface with beautiful figure. So thanks for joining me on this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope it was helpful if you're doing your own projects. If you want to support this channel and see more restorations like this, you can buy me a coffee. The link is in the description below this video. And also just comment, like, and subscribe to the channel. That helps me to continue to spend some time making these videos for everyone. But if you just came to watch and that's all you did, thank you again. And I hope to see you again. Cheers.